Welcome back to another episode of Out Loud Geek, where we discuss news and views about pop culture, science fiction, fantasy, food, cooking, the outdoors, and more. Alec Baldwin is in trouble again after a New Mexico grand jury recommended that he be charged with involuntary manslaughter in the accidental death of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins on the set of the movie Rust back on October 21st, 2021. But before we dig into this, I'd like to ask everyone to please like this video, please press the red subscribe button to support this channel, and please press the bell to receive notifications. Thanks! I had actually talked about this possibility in a video that I had released back on October 19th, 2023, after a grand jury had been convened in New Mexico to look into this matter. But let's take a look at an article published by The Hollywood Reporter. This decision came after a series of missteps by a previous prosecution that involved having to drop charges and to conduct a new investigation into the gun that discharged on the set of the low-budget Western. Baldwin is now expected to be charged by New Mexico prosecutors, who initially dropped the criminal case to review new evidence suggesting that the gun he was holding had been modified. The 5-month investigation culminated with a forensic expert issuing a report clashing with an account of the incident from Baldwin, who maintained that he did not pull the trigger on the firearm when it discharged. If convicted, Baldwin faces a sentence of 18 months in prison, but it remains unknown if he'll be arrested. Quote, "We look forward to our day in court," unquote, said Baldwin's attorneys Luke Nikas and Alex Spiro in a statement issued on Friday. One item that The Hollywood Reporter did not include in its article is something that was reported in Variety. Two special prosecutors, Carrie Morrissey and Jason Lewis, sent the gun for further forensic testing last summer. Their experts, Lucian and Michael Haig, reconstructed the gun, which had been broken during FBI testing, and concluded that it could only have been fired by a pull of the trigger. Quote, "This fatal incident was the consequence of the hammer being manually retracted to its fully rearward and cocked position, followed at some point by the pull or rearward depression of the trigger," unquote, the report concluded. Quote, "Although Alec Baldwin repeatedly denies pulling the trigger, given the tests, findings, and observations reported here, the trigger had to be pulled or depressed sufficiently to release the fully cocked or retracted hammer of the evidence revolver," unquote. Now, if the revolver had been damaged during testing by the FBI and then repaired afterwards before these additional tests were conducted, that, in my opinion, does not necessarily represent the behavior of the gun on the day of the shooting. And that alone, in my own opinion, could give Baldwin's defense a broad basis for reasonable doubt, because that means that the weapon has been tampered with since the shooting. And courts typically don't permit tampered evidence to be admissible in a criminal trial. Now back to The Hollywood Reporter. Before the shooting occurred, Assistant Director David Halls had handed Baldwin the weapon and said that it did not contain live ammunition, but it discharged in the direction of Hutchins, who was killed, and Director Joel Sousa, who was injured. 5 live rounds mixed in with dummy rounds were later found on set following the shooting. And it still remains unknown how the live rounds ended up on the set. To me, this is the crux of the matter. How did live rounds end up on the set of Rust? How did they get mixed in with the dummy rounds? And why did the armorer fail to distinguish between the live and dummy rounds? In my own opinion, these are the actions that led to the fatal accidental shooting. And whoever allowed the live rounds to get onto the Rust set, whoever mixed them with the dummy rounds, and whoever then loaded the revolver with the live rounds is the person or people ultimately responsible for the death of Halyna Hutchins. Alec Baldwin was holding the revolver when it discharged, but had it been loaded only with dummy rounds, no one would have been injured or killed. And moments before the accident, Baldwin had been assured by the assistant director who had handed him the revolver that it was only loaded with dummy rounds. Plus, as far as him pointing the revolver towards Hutchins and Sousa, is that what he had been told to do at the time as part of the shot that was being filmed? There are a lot of unanswered questions here that all say reasonable doubt. When Baldwin was initially charged in January 2023, prosecutors alleged Baldwin should have assumed the gun he was handling was loaded with live rounds and known that, quote, "The first rule of gun safety is never to point a gun at someone you don't intend on shooting," unquote, according to the statement of probable cause. It's been further alleged that Baldwin failed to undergo, quote, "required firearms training prior to the commencement of filming," unquote, even after, quote, "Gutierrez-Reed requested more training," unquote. The actor was also alleged to have fostered an unsafe set by hiring Gutierrez-Reed as lead armorer and neglected to address multiple safety violations before the shooting, including prior misfires. A New Mexico safety agency later found numerous serious violations of safety protocols and fined the production $100,000. The statement read, quote, "This reckless deviation from known standards and practice and protocol directly caused the fatal shooting. Baldwin acted with willful disregard of the safety of others and in a manner which endangered other people," unquote. Before the grand jury was convened, a New Mexico judge ruled that the movie's production entity must turn over records that could indicate whether Baldwin shirked industry-wide set safety norms to shoot the film on a shoestring budget. Prosecutors are seeking documents between Rust Movie Productions and the actor, as well as his production company, El Dorado Pictures. They are investigating the possibility that Baldwin stood to profit if he cut corners on set safety related to the use of guns. Now, these are potentially very serious allegations. If there is actual evidence that Baldwin did place greater importance on saving money than on safety on the set, that to me would be a stronger basis for charging him with a crime. But that may fall more under the realm of criminal negligence than manslaughter. The ruling was delivered after the judge declined to dismiss charges in August against Gutierrez-Reed, who argued that prosecutors tainted the investigation to the point that a fair trial is no longer possible, didn't have the authority to bring a case against her, and that her due process rights were violated. Prosecutors in June charged her with evidence tampering, alleging she, quote, "did transfer narcotics to another person with the intent to prevent the apprehension, prosecution, or conviction of herself," unquote. She was also alleged to have been, quote, "drinking heavily and smoking marijuana," unquote, in the evening during the filming of Rust, and likely being hung over when she loaded the gun that discharged with a live round. Further details weren't disclosed. Her trial is scheduled to start in February. If there is evidence that Gutierrez-Reed was impaired on the day of the shooting, that would certainly work against her in court. But I still have my doubts about Baldwin's culpability. We'll have to wait and see how this all plays out. Thanks for watching today, and a huge thanks to everyone who has subscribed to our channel. We appreciate your support. If you enjoyed this video, please press the like button, and please feel free to share a comment. If you'd like to help support this channel, please press the red subscribe button, and please press the bell to receive notifications for new content. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Twitter by clicking on the links in the description. Until next time, this is Out Loud Geek.